Aloha, everybody, and welcome back to the Wall Street Coach podcast. I'm very excited today to have really a legend here. Everybody here knows him by PAX, but his formal name is Matt Kenah. And I would just like to welcome you and thank you, Matt, for being here in the first place. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me, Kim.
I, really was impressed with just watching so much of the material and content you put out there. We were just talking a few minutes ago about how much negativity is out there. Part of what I see often in your tweets and, just how you talk in other interviews, you are somebody who seems to be approaching trading and just living from a glass half filled standpoint. What informs that? Where did that come from?
I don't know. I think I've always been that way. I've always been that way. I think certainly my faith, my faith in God and my belief in my faith in myself too, has I've always been a confident person.
Mhm.
Even if my self-esteem was fluttering for some reason, I've always, like through I was married for 6 years and in the heyday of my floor career, and when that marriage fell apart and different things that had happened on the floor, when my self-confidence, not self-confidence, but my self-esteem, my sense of self-worth was waning, I was still confident in my abilities, ultimately confident in what I could do, and so that always carried me through. And I think that goes all the way back to childhood. I was always a confident kid, sensitive, always very sensitive and emotive. And, I can feel, everybody's energy and that has always made me kind of an effective person with other people, and it's also helped me a great deal as a trader. That I can sense things. I can sense the markets are moving, living, breathing animals, and I can sense when they're moving. I've got a framework that I put around the market, the process that I've developed, that helps me see the market movement, and it helps me control my risk and helps me determine where to take profit and things. But none of that's going to work if it's just all binary to me. None of it's going to mean anything if it's just all about numbers. I need to be able to feel it, sense it, know it, and then I have to trust myself that I'll be okay. That I'll stay grounded. And that's been the hard part for me. The hard part for me has been to stay grounded and centered in what I'm doing, what's in front of me, and I post a lot about that on X. Don't worry about, like, the last couple of days I've been talking about the last few trades. Yesterday was a really good trading day, and I missed it. I didn't take one trade. Today was a great trading day on the upside, back down, and again I missed it. I don't need to catch. I'm also at the point in my career where I don't need to be very aggressive, and I don't need to catch every move. So I mean, that's part of it.
Yeah.
2-3 years ago, I probably would. But anyway, I've always been confident, and I think that helps me see past whatever Michigas is, in front of us. I can see past whatever the mess is, and I can always see what is best in a situation, and that helps. Like, close out the trade, and that trade is over, or miss the trade. I missed it. I live to fight another day. Always something to take that's positive out of it, and that helps me stay focused on what I need to stay focused on, so I can continue to succeed.
I want to thank our sponsor, Centerpoint, for sponsoring the Wall Street Coach podcast. And if you're ready to experience 60 days commission-free and their exceptional customer service, then please use our link to check them out. Now back to our podcast. Yeah, I think it's a fascinating distinction that you're speaking to of this concept of being able to have confidence in yourself, even if one is feeling like their self-esteem is kind of beat up. It's a really great specificity, because I think that is something traders struggle with. How do they stay in a place of confidence, but also not have it slip into hubris? So how do you keep an eye on yourself? Do you have kind of like a check system within yourself around watching that you have that confidence, because God knows a trader needs that. But how do you yourself keep that kind of in your consciousness, awareness?
In my life or in my trading, do you mean? How do I keep from moving into hubris in my trading or in the way that I live?
Let's talk how you live first, but then in your trading, because sometimes I feel how we do one thing is how we do everything.
Well, a major component of all this, I think, for me is my experience in blowing myself up after MF Global failed in October of 2011, and I had lost seven figures in it. This is after a major bunch of setbacks from 08 and 09. My mom died in 08. My sister also in 08, within 6 months of each other. My mother-in-law in March of 09. My son, who's now 18, was 4 at the time, and he was in the hospital for a month and a half with an immune deficiency. And my appendix burst. All in between that, my prop group that I owned failed. All within the same year. So we were still okay, I mean, financially, and my wife and I were fine, and my ex-wife and my 2 older kids, everybody was great. We're one big happy yet dysfunctional family, I suppose. And then MF Global was like the straw that kind of broke the back. I went back into the hogs. I went and traded the hogs after all of that, after 08 and 09, and kind of found my footing again. And then MF Global happened, and I just started to chase. Everything. Self-confidence. We were talking about self-confidence. Being very self-confident can also move into hubris. So now I'll get that money back. 2 million. I'll make that back. So 20,000, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, down the drain, chasing. No process, no methodology. I was just trading big size, flipping in and out, no risk management, and certainly no chance of making money. And so, that sort of ego and that sort of hubris, or that over self-confident, confidence just destroyed me. I hadn't dealt with, really, I hadn't mourned, my mom or Elizabeth's death. I hadn't dealt with a lot of that shit. I had to. And at that point now, that experience informs the next 10 years. I started trading again in 2013, one lots, late 2012 going into 13, one lots and two lots. And by that time I had nothing left except for getting some money back from MF Global, which enabled me to restart, and my wife and I took a step back. My wife was a clerk on at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange for 18 years. So she knew the business very well. So we rented a house in Key Biscayne, Florida for the winter, and just kind of regrouped. Now, what do we do? Do I take the money? Do I go to law school, become an attorney at 44 years old, starting over, but I'm smart, I can do it. Do I become a therapist? I thought about doing that. I didn't want to trade, but my wife reminded me that her words, and I certainly wouldn't agree with her, but her words were I was king of the NASDAQ when I met her. So go figure it out. When she met me, I was the king of the NASDAQ. I wasn't, but in her mind I was, which so go figure it out. She trusted me, and
Beautiful.
And I felt like I can do anything at that point, So it was just one lots and two lots and trading very small, and trying to put together I had 2 goals at the time, was to be positive at the end of the day. $50 or $100, $200, it didn't matter. At $100 would be 1,000, 2,000, as long as I achieved my second goal, which was developing a process, that I can put around the market that's repeatable, scalable, consistent, repeatable, and scalable, that fulfilled those 3 things. So that was, shifting my focus away from my ego or my cars, my stuff, what we had, what we didn't have, any of that stuff, to, hey, let's just, let's do a job. Here's my job that I need to accomplish every day. Just do a job,
Yeah.
And that became a month, became 6 months, became a year. And I started to trade bigger and make a little bit more money. Then the volatility picked up, and around 15, 16, it was, and I just stayed focused on doing my job.
Yeah.
And I still do.
Did you find do you feel that what happened in 2011 ultimately facilitated you being where you are now in the way you trade, in how you trade, in the success you have now?
Certainly, absolutely. So, I mean, I had more money, I mean, I'm very successful and very, satisfied with where we are. But, prior to '08, I made a lot of money in the NASDAQ pit. It was great. Um, but I've never been wealthier, if I didn't have that experience of 2011, 12, MF Global in 11 and then blowing up in 12. If I didn't have that experience, I don't know if I'd be as healthy as I am. I don't know if, I'm in good shape. I'm in very good shape. I run, I lift weights
Yeah.
every day. I am, my wife and I couldn't be more in love.
Yeah.
We have five beautiful I have two kids from my first marriage, and Jen and I have three. So we're a blended family. Our kids, we're all one big family. So I've got five beautiful kids that are all smart and moral people.
Yeah.
More importantly, they're moral people, and I don't worry about them. I worry about their safety, but I don't
Sure.
worry about what they're going to be in their life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That
so,
wealth, that wealth is so beautiful. So talk about what real wealth is
geez, um,
for you.
I have a God that I have to make sure. Getting emotional, my eyes welled up. I
I,
have a God that loves me and that I strive to love every day. I have a beautiful wife that, I don't know, that loves me and I love her. It's amazing. Marriage only gets better. At least it has in my experience. Um, we stuck with one another. She stood with me when many other women probably would have ran, and had every reason to.
yeah.
But that stick-to-itiveness,
Yeah.
had, where I just couldn't imagine, couldn't imagine my life being any different. And I think that's the real wealth. We don't live we live understated. We drive nice cars.
Yeah.
We've got a nice home. I can afford bigger and better, but we're more focused on other things than that.
Yeah.
And the fact that my kids are, that I can say with pride that my kids are good moral people. They're good looking, of course, they're smart, of course, but they're good moral people. And
Yeah.
that makes me feel wealthy. I have a thriving business.
Yeah.
Every single day I have the ability to, I have the ability that comes naturally to me to continue to do better and be better. And I'm challenged every day to overcome my weaknesses and to maximize my strengths in my trading and in working with other traders. And just everything that I do just makes me better. And I don't know that I don't know that there's anything that could make me wealthier than that. I have people that love me and I am loved.
Pretty, pretty much as good as it gets. And you're making a difference. Uh, Certainly with your Pillars Club, which I just want to speak to because it's just such an incredible organization. It is a mentoring group for grade school aged boys to really reach out to Chicago's youth before any of the gangs get a hold of them. What was it that inspired you to start the Pillars Club?
There was when we sold our house in Lake Forest, Illinois, which is a really beautiful, expensive suburb, and we moved back to the south side of Chicago in a neighborhood I grew up in. And we took our kids out of private, school and had to put them into public school for less than a year before we were able to change that. And it was a Title I school. So it was also a good experience because they had come from, these are my younger kids, my older kids ended up staying up north, but they had experienced something that otherwise they wouldn't have, and got to meet people of different walks of life. So I coached Little League. I coached these kids in Little League. I coached these kids in football. And then me and one of the other baseball coaches, Jinsey Harton, who's a pastor out here, in a church. He and I were just kind of talking about, these kids, white kids and black kids and Hispanic kids that are all kind of thrown together. And let's try to do something. Let's try to do something beyond it. So we sat down and drank some coffee one morning and just kind of decided, what sounded good. What could we do? We want to reach these kids before they wind up going to high school and joining gangs. So we decided to start with fourth grade boys and all the way up through middle school. And we went to the principals and we started working in a school that his kids went to, and then we branched off into different schools around the south side of Chicago, and then we ended up starting a group based out of the 18th ward on the south side, with the help of the alderman that went into all of the schools on the south side, and it was a great experience getting that up off the ground. And it's been, now I'm seeing the first kids that we had mentored are in college now. And I've provided financial assistance for a lot of those kids that otherwise might not have been able to get through some Catholic high school, private high school, Catholic high school, and on inwards into college, through a little bit of a scholarship fund that we had started, my family and I, and endowed. So that has created a great deal to my wealth too. And it is you really did your homework, because I don't always talk about that, and I should probably talk about that more on Twitter. But we had the ability to be able to see these kids grow. Most of the kids came from broken homes or no dad at all. And we were there to let them know that there's a right and a wrong way of looking at things and doing things. I could talk about this for hours. We ended up for the eighth grade boys, we would take them out downtown to dinner, to Gibson's Steakhouse in the city, and they would help. After a while, they knew what we were doing. They would make a big deal out of it. They put us in a private room, and we'd get the boys shirts and ties, and we'd practice at school. We'd practice ordering off a menu. A lot of these kids have never seen a menu, let alone what forks do we use and how do we work inside out and all of that other stuff. How do we order? How do we live? How do we act? Those sorts of things were some of the highlights of the stuff that I've been able to do to continue to love and to be loved.
Yeah. But I just see the correlation of you being, someone who is mentoring in multiple areas of your life. So you're not just mentoring with the Pillars Club and those young men, but you're also mentoring with the PAX group. And one of the, phrases and hashtags that the PAX group you said lives by is nobody fights alone.
Yeah.
And that too feels like another extension of you wanting to be this contribution and take all the hard-earned wisdom you've received and acquired and persisted in to make sure it gets passed down. So what inspired you to even create? You could have just kept trading by yourself, but you wanted to do this for other traders. What informed that?
That all happened by accident, and that's not something, I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. So I had my 17-year-old junior in high school was an Irish dancer. And the parents Irish, and my son plays college baseball. He was in travel then. So I've always I always talk about trading. I always talk about the markets. I always share my experience. So Gabriel's pitching coach, a guy named Chris Tierney, played professional baseball in the minor leagues. He was interested in learning how to trade. So come on over. He comes over to my house, and he's in he's hiking the mountains in Nepal now. He texts me from the strangest places. So he's become a pretty good trader. And then an Irish dance dad who I became very good friends with, he's a carpenter, and he didn't have anything to do, so he's coming over in the mornings. And so these two guys are coming over, Tierney and Kearns, and we're all trading together. Three Irish guys are sitting around trading together. Kevin is from Northern Ireland, so he takes his family to Northern Ireland, home for 3 weeks in the summertime of 2018. I just joined Twitter for my son's baseball.
Okay.
So he'd asked me, can you started the group? And so it was the summer of 18, or the fall of 18, that he went to Ireland. and he asked me if I would tweet my trades so that, he could save the money
Yeah.
on his data on his phone. I think he still had to pay for data then. So yeah, okay, Kevin. I had no idea how to do any of that, so I did. And within a few months, I kept doing it too because people started to ask questions.
Of course.
And I learned the hashtags. I would do, hashtag ES dot underscore F for NASDAQ when I was trading or crude. And then eventually we went to Mass. I had, I don't know, 40 or 50 followers, on maybe 60 followers on Twitter. We come out of Mass and my daughter somehow looked at my Twitter page and said, Dad, you're blowing up. You got 100, 200, 300 followers. Somebody had retweeted me. And then I ended up like around 500 or 600 followers. Anthony Credelli or Jimmy Jude at that point, two guys that I've known for a long time, had
He's awesome.
yeah, he is. He and I are very close. And he tweeted, I think it was Anthony that said, "Are you PAX from the NASDAQ?" I said, "I am." And then then me and Jimmy and Anthony on a Saturday night ended up having, like a twit storm, of stories. And that's when, my Twitter really took off and people were, again, asking questions. And Anthony had me on his podcast and, and then I'm 1,000, 2,000 followers. And people started to ask me to do a Slack room or Discord or things like that. And I never heard of any of that. So one of the things that I do at the end of the day is I lay down on a couch over here in my office and I kind of meditate, sort of get if it's a busy day, I don't do it every day, but it was a day where I traded. I lay down and I kind of get in that twilight state, just, unwind that, tension or whatever from the day. And it was just, get up and do a Slack room. So I got up and I tried to put together, so I couldn't figure out Slack. So then I did, I'll try Discord. So I Googled Discord, 53 years old or 52 years old at the time. I have no idea how to work any of this shit. So I was able to figure out how to put together something, and I tweeted the Discord link. So then there were, I said, "Hey, I'll be in there at 5 o'clock Central Time. Anybody want to come in there?" There were a few hundred people in there, and it was fun. So everyone's asking me to, we do it again. We trade there. We continue to trade there. So we trade there. So I did. I don't remember how I did that. So, but, and this English guy came home and said, "Listen, if you mentor me, if you teach me how to trade your process, I'll put the Discord room together, and I'll organize it for you." I said, "Okay, cool. You do that." And so I did. I taught him how to trade. And then, I always said that if it interferes with what I'm doing, if it interferes with my trading, I'm going to shut it down. And it did. It started at people were trolling me and charts and not paying attention to my trading process and what I'm trying to teach them, and fading markets and doing all kinds of shit that I knew was going to blow them up, and it was stressing me out. And remember earlier I said I can feel everybody's energy, and I do. I feel it in the Discord too. So I shut it down, and then I talked to Jack and one of my mentors, Judd Hirschberg, and they said, "Well, why don't you charge for it, and then you'll get only serious traders in there." So I thought, okay, that's not a bad idea. I'm a capitalist. I'm not a communist or a socialist. Yeah, let's see. I put this trading methodology together.
Right.
It's a bunch of money. I'll teach other people how to do it. So I did. I've gotten some shit for doing that, but
From who? From who?
nameless people on Twitter, will see, but
Please.
ultimately it matters very little to me because the people in my group have, and I don't ever market it. I don't sell it. I don't want a huge Discord. There's, a small number of traders in there, and we're all trading the same method and the same process.
Yeah.
And I get the most beautiful messages from people, and I get to know them and they get to know me, and I'm very honest about things going on in my life. I expect if they're going to be honest with me, that I've got to be honest with them. And I am.
Yeah.
So what motivates me to continue to go and to work with everybody is the fact that people are I'm not changing anybody's life. People are changing their lives because they're finding a process to live their lives by, and they're finding a process to trade by. And none of those are perfect. There's probably better processes to live life by than the one I do, or maybe not, but there's I'm sure better processes than the ones that I come up with in trading. Maybe, I don't know. But the fact that people are becoming better people, and that motivates me. The group, you know how they say in like 12-step groups, if you don't have faith in God, then believe in the power of the group. If you can't believe in something greater than yourself, then believe that the group is greater. And that's something that I talk a lot about, if because I talk about my faith constantly. If you don't believe in God, and you don't believe God loves you, then at least believe that this group is better than you. We all need to believe in something greater than us. And that keeps us grounded and keeps the hubris and ego away. I think anyway, at least it does for me, and it seems to for the brothers and sisters in my group.
Yeah.
And every day, Kim, at the end of every day, when I sign off and I close the group down, I always say that, I always say the same things. Sleep with the angels and the saints, and nobody fights alone. I say that every day, and I couldn't be more grateful for that.
Yeah. And I'm sure they are grateful for it too. And
Yeah.
I believe that in this journey, whether people are trading or whether they're living, when you're not alone, your ability to endure is incredibly strong.
Keyword, endure. Trading is not a team sport. I mean, I can't click the mouse for him. I can't not click the mouse for him, but together we can endure. We can endure the hardships that we will all face as traders, as people, we will all get sick, we will all get old, and we will all die. And when I die, I'm not going to take any, my BMW is not coming with me. My wife's Range Rover is not going with her. The love that we have and the love that we gave is what we are going to be surrounded by. And that is what we all need to stay focused on, so that we can endure the ups and downs that this market brings us, or this job as a trader brings us, or the crazy stuff that we are seeing in life, the crazy stuff that goes on in the city that I love, in Chicago, the crazy stuff that was going on in New York, another city I love, the crazy shit that we're seeing that happen. There are good, as you pointed out earlier in the earlier conversation before we started recording, and you wrote your book about, there are good people. There are really good people out there just constantly trying to do the right thing and helping other people see what that right thing may be.
That's right. That's right. But if we don't focus on them, if we don't look for them, it's very easy to just notice all the bad guys or the horrors of this world. But I really believe that the love that is being practiced, it's funny because one of the women I interviewed in my book, I just have to say this because this is you. She said that she speaks to a story of her own journey, and she calls herself a Trojan horse of love. She works in finance, but that is you. You, Matt, are a Trojan horse of love. It's a pretty beautiful thing to be. So thank you for doing that, and for all the impact that you're having on so many lives, and to have a handle on a platform that we both know has a tendency to not focus on the positive. It's making a huge impact, huge impact. I don't know if you know Power versus Force by Hawkins, but he talks about how one person's energy, he measures kind of, lots of different energies. And he says that love vibrates at a 600, and that one person who's vibrating at that level in their life and how they interact with people can make up for hundreds of thousands of those who aren't.
That's beautiful. I didn't know that. That is beautiful.
It's a gorgeous, I think it matters to know that this impact that one is seeking to have is happening. And I hope, if nothing else, you know that about yourself, because all of the lives you're touching, all of those people who hear you 5 days a week at the end of the trading, here's nobody fights alone. Those people are walking out into God knows what their lives look like.
Yeah.
And they're able to hold space maybe for somebody else who feels alone. Like
Yes.
that's the ripple effect.
Yes, that's truly beautiful. Yes, and I'm mindful of that. I'm very, very mindful of that.
Yeah.
I have a temper, I get aggravated with my trading, and I'll get aggravated with other people, I'll I usually but I use those moments, when I get pissed off and I might, be unfair to somebody. I use those moments as not just, I use those moments to as kind of I don't like saying teaching. I like to think of myself as a leader, but I use those as teaching moments because I want everyone to know, or I'll talk about an argument that my wife and I get into. And because usually, even if I'm wrong, I mean, even if I'm right, or I think I'm right,
Yeah.
I'm wrong, because if the way that I reacted to something is what is under my control. So if I've got a problem with her or you or them or whatever, then I have to turn inward and I have to take a look at what my reaction to it was. So in the room, I'll immediately, correct it. Say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have acted that way. And I'm not going to say, but you should have, I don't do that.
Yep.
Because if I buy today, if I buy 5101s and they go 98 offer, am I going to blame the market and scream at the market? Or am I going to say, you know what, I shouldn't have done that. I got to get out, I got to correct it. And I need to take another look at my behavior, not what the market. The market is doing whatever the hell the market is going to do. So I need to be able to take a look at my behavior and what I just did that is either propelling me forward or holding me back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to make a point before I forget it. In my Twitter bio,
Yeah.
I have my trading badge was PAX, and I chose it because it means peace in Latin. So I chose it in 1997. I had studied to be a Catholic priest. I started on the floor in 1989. No, I didn't. Yeah, 89, 88, and then became a clerk in 89, and left in 93, right when I was getting my seat to my membership to be a broker.
Wow.
And I studied to be a priest for 3.5 years. So when I came out, I got married very quickly and had a baby within a year, got my seat and made my first million within a year of that. So within 2 years, my life completely pivoted and changed. So when I got my seat, I wanted my membership to kind of because everybody would call me that, I wanted my membership to represent who I was, and I wanted to stand for something. So I chose PAX. And in my Twitter bio, it says PAX at Caritas, which simply put is peace and love. It means peace and love in Latin. And those are the first three words, PAX at Caritas, that people see if they click on my bio. And that to me sums up the whole thing here, right? I can sit and I can look at what's going on in college campuses and I can point the finger. I can look at what's going on politically in different places of the world and I can point the finger. And I've got my opinions, but I don't share them on Twitter. It's not my point. It's not what I'm here to do. I don't think it's very difficult for people to figure out where I stand on things.
Right.
I'm a middle-aged white man. I mean, it's pretty stereotypical. But I try to listen to other perspectives.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is where you want to go, but this is something that jumped into my mind too.
Yeah.
I talked about this with my son last night. There was a shooting, a Chicago police shooting. My brother Pat is a sergeant in the Chicago police. He's an evidence technician, so he's got nothing to do with any of this shit anymore. He was on the street for 20 years now, but
wow.
So there was a shooting and it made national news, So I was reading comments on X, and if there's somebody says something that I think is thoughtful, even if I completely agree with them or disagree with them,
Yep.
or have a completely different perspective, I'll click on their bio and see what they're about.
Yep.
And I did that with this young woman, and she was on a Spaces. So I jumped on a Spaces and I was the only white face in the space,
Wow.
and they saw me in there,
Yeah, of course.
There was like 12, 14 people. By the end of it, there were over 80. And they had a very different perspective than mine. Very different experience than mine.
Yep.
But I sat and I listened to their experience and I got a different perspective on what my thought process was around not the shooting of this kid, the kid shot the police first, but the context for the stop, just all of it gave me a different perspective, and I've always been open-minded about those sorts of things, so that I can pivot when I need to pivot, or I can grow when I need to grow, or I can see things from a different light in maybe, in a way that might be surprising to people. So, that helps me in my trading. I live my life the same way that I trade. I trade the same way I live, and I think we all do. If I'm drinking and I'm living my life, compartmentalized, I have no joy in my life, I'm not taking care of myself, I don't feel healthy, I don't feel strong, that is going to reflect in my trading. It is absolutely going to reflect in my trading. If I don't feel loved, which I have had extended periods of my life where I did not feel loved. In my first marriage, when just all of that was a difficult time. But I knew that I'd be okay. I didn't know how, I didn't know why, I didn't know when, I didn't know where, but I knew I'd be okay, and I was. Same thing when I went broke. When I went broke, I drank too much. I was still smoking. I was 30, 40 pounds heavier, and I couldn't run around the block. I couldn't do push-ups. I stopped smoking. I bought a pair of running shoes, and I started to walk around the block, and then I started to run around the block, and then I started to run a mile and 2 miles and 3 miles. And then I got back and I joined, I can't afford a gym. Planet Fitness is a sawbuck, is $10 a month.
Exactly.
Any of us can afford that. When $100 would have helped, change my life at that point, I was going to Planet Fitness every morning at 4. And even that, I was getting up to, oh, I'm getting too far off base. And Kim, I can do that. So let me just make this point, and then I'll get back to your direction. But I'm not a naturally disciplined person. Left to my own devices, I'd be laying on the couch, chilling out, maybe reading a book. But I got up to, when we were broke, I needed to figure out what worked. So do I trade the US Open? Do I trade Europe Open, Asian Open? So I was staying up to trade all those opens and napping in between it. And then I realized that I was making more money trading the US Open, but I'm waking up at 3 in the morning, and my body was used to waking up at 3 in the morning. So I'd go work out at 4, and then I'd come back and I was refreshed and ready and energized. And then I would trade the Open, and take a nap during the day and come back and trade the close. And I started to whittle that into like a morning routine, a morning routine that helps me determine my level of being, what I call CCFF, confident, carefree, fearless, and focused, which is my first step in sizing up. So, I wake up every morning at 4:45. I sleep, a little bit later, and, I pray, I meditate, and
but you've found what works for you, and that is so important. And we are supposed to go over to X to do a conversation there, but to just close this particular recording up, what would you say are the most important questions traders who have been at this for a while, maybe they're not a decade in, but they're, 3 to 5 years in, what are the most important questions they need to ask themselves if they really are interested in leveling up?
That's a great question. Do you believe in yourself? I mean, do you believe that no matter what kind of shit life is going to throw at you, or no matter what kind of shit you're going to create for yourself, do you believe in yourself that you'll be okay? That you'll make it through it, that you'll figure it out, and that you'll find something that works and stick to it. If you do, then you might be part of the 3% of traders that actually make money long term. If you don't believe that, and you don't care about finding a process that's consistent, repeatable, and scalable, and you're not gonna do a job, you're not gonna stick to it. That's your job. Do a job. Do your job. Accomplish it every day. If you're not going to be able to stick to it, and you don't have that fortitude, or you don't have the character to help you do that at the time, but you believe in yourself, then do what I did and develop the character. Get up early, go work out, move your body, eat whole healthy foods, and take care of the people that you love, and then you will become that person.
Beautiful.
Just stick to it.
So good to have you here. There are probably is going to have to be a part 2 because I have a lot more questions for you, but
Sure.
we'll take some of them over to X now. Thank you for being on my podcast, and I'll see everybody on the next episode of the Wall Street Coach.